Hi, I'm Erin Lundy.
And I'm Madeline Walden, and this is
Aquarium of the Podcific,
a podcast brought to you by Aquarium of the Pacific, Southern California's largest aquarium.
Join us as we learn alongside the experts in animal care, conservation, and more. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to the last episode of the season.
That's so sad.
Fun.
Season 2 is over.
Season 2 is complete.
But first, before season 2 is over, let's learn probably the most.
It's not over yet.
Well, okay.
At the end of this,
It'll be over.
it'll be over.
But before it's over, we are going to learn about crabs because we actually had a listener request an episode specifically about crabs so that she could share it with one of her friends who loves crabs. And that was just the sweetest thing we've ever heard.
It made us so happy. We're like, yeah, we're going to do that. We're gonna close out
Immediately
the season.
scrapped everything else. We're recording a crab
Let's
episode.
do a crab episode right now.
And to be
today.
fair, I think that's what we always wanted anyway. Who doesn't want to
Exactly.
learn about crabs?
I learned so much. We just finished recording. I learned so much about crabs.
Yeah, we just talked to Melissa Fisher, who's one of our aquarists in our temperate gallery, and she has spent quite a bit of time with our Japanese spider crabs. And so our episode is focused specifically on this one species, but we learn about crab raves. We learn about crabs potentially summoning something from the underworld and what their checkups look like. Crab facelift, like just the coolest episode. And
It's a really interesting one.
more dynamic animals than I ever
Than
imagined
you would
they
think
could
for
be.
a crab. Yeah, they have personalities.
They're decorating things. They're getting jazzed up. They're getting a facelift.
They really
They're getting
are.
surgery. It's just, it's a good time.
It's a really cool episode. But thank you guys so much for joining us for another season on Podcific. We had a blast making it for you. And we'll be back for season 3 soon-ish.
And in season 3, hopefully we will have resolved some of our recording studio issues. So we will have more consistent episodes that sound more consistent as
Might
well.
sound a little bit better too.
We're getting new equipment. We're sort of making sure everything is sounding top notch for you guys. So we really appreciate everyone hanging tight and listening to us talk about our animals. It's been the best time ever.
It truly has. This
Yeah.
has been a blast. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Erin, for co-hosting with me.
And no thanks to Madeline for
0 thanks.
literally does all the editing and hosting. And no
Fine.
thanks to
And
you.
no thanks
just
to
all
me.
thanks to me.
That's
No,
okay.
it's been wonderful. And thanks to everyone who's been supporting the podcast the whole way through. And
Yeah.
for everyone who's been on this season. We've had some really great interviews too.
And if you have a suggestion or a request for a future episode, definitely reach out. You can email the aquarium at aquariumofpacific@lbaop.org, or you can always message us on either any social media account. Truly, it'll get to me.
It's all Madeline.
I'm the one responding to you most of the time. But you can reach out there, and we're at Aquarium Pacific pretty much everywhere on the internet. And we also have a podcast specific Instagram. It's at Podcific. So check it out. Give us a follow on Instagram.
And Madeline will see every
And I
single
will
message
see.
you send. And we may even record an entire episode just because you asked us to talk about your
Exactly.
favorite animal or species,
Yeah.
which is what we're doing today.
So do that. So
And
do it.
learn about crabs
And learn about
right now.
All right. We'll see you next season, everybody.
Today we are joined by Melissa Fisher, who's one of our aquarists in our temperate gallery. Melissa, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you?
Good.
Pretty good.
What's temperate gallery? Can you explain what that means
So,
to our audience?
Our temperate gallery is what we call any of our cold water exhibits. So that includes our Northern Pacific gallery, which is going to range a little bit colder, to our local Southern California gallery, which is a little bit warmer. But anything pretty much under 70 degrees is what we cover.
That's cold.
That is a little
That's
too cold for me.
I think it's funny that SoCal, I mean, because it is considered a temperate water habitat. Our water's cold.
It's pretty cold.
It's pretty misunderstood that I would think that, people think they go to the beach here and it's warm. It's cold.
It's
Every beach I
freezing.
go to is so cold.
yeah, it's pretty cold. I was just diving the other day and it was like 50 degrees. So
Oh my God. In the middle of
It's
summer?
July.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's July. It was 50 degrees. I could never. I grew up in Hawaii, and so I'm used to water being like 72. And if it's any lower than that, freezing.
Bath water, please.
Yeah.
That's
I
so
will
funny.
go in the ocean if it is a bath and nothing else.
Amazing. Well, today we are going to talk about crabs, which we're really excited about because it's our first listener requested episode. And Melissa has specifically worked with our spider crabs here at the aquarium, which is a very iconic species, I feel like.
Yeah, if you look at our Japanese spider crabs, they are enormous, and they are always doing something sort of silly in their exhibit. And today I even noticed they have new furniture in there. So
Do they really?
They
Yeah.
do.
What's new in there?
We added a old whale fall simulated
Really?
exhibit that we had in a previous gallery like 6+ years ago. So
I think that was part of that habitat a long time
Once
ago
upon a
too.
time.
Once upon a time.
Yes, they.
Oh my
they
gosh, it's
kinda
back.
Yeah, it's back.
Wow, this is breaking news.
Yes.
This is huge news. Podcific update. That's so cool. I'm excited to see it. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it seems like they're enjoying it. I've seen them
Cool.
crawling on it a lot.
What is a whale fall? Can you tell our audience about that?
Sure. So a whale fall is kind of what it sounds like. It's usually when a deceased whale has fallen to the bottom of the ocean, which is sad, but it actually provides a very rich habitat for a lot of different animals. And so they use all of the whale for food, for even hiding, and it brings about a lot of different kinds of animals, a bunch of different inverts, but also large sharks and other pelagic animals, and it creates a habitat in an area that usually would have nothing.
Fascinating.
It's pretty cool. I mean, like the bottom of the ocean, especially where light's not reaching, there's nothing growing down there. And it must be so hard for like new nutrients to be introduced that far down. And so it's cool if you ever look up videos of whale falls, which makes me sound like I'm a very weird person. But you'll just see like a million crabs just coming and swarming this whale fall because they're like, hey, nutrients and food. And they must sense it from like miles away. Like,
But you don't currently take care of the spider crab habitat, is that right?
I do not. I stopped taking care about a month ago, but right now I'm doing a lot of work with our white abalones, and then I have a couple of our filter feeding exhibits in our SoCal gallery.
Very cool. Our recently renovated a year ago.
Yes,
SoCal gallery.
Yes.
and it's looking really nice. And you can see abalones on exhibit.
You
Very cool.
can. It's very
We'll have
exciting.
to talk about abalones in a future episode.
Yeah,
for
we
sure.
really, especially the white abalone project that we have here. But as it relates to our spider crabs, why don't you tell us a little bit about what it was like taking care of that species?
Silly habitat.
Yeah, right.
Silly
Yeah.
species, right?
So I was a little bit nervous going in because they're kind of large, strange animals, and I really didn't have any
big.
experience. They're pretty big, and ours are not even as big as they can get. So sometimes when you look at other aquariums, ours even look a little puny. But
How
they're
big do they get?
They can get up to 12 feet
What?
from like leg to leg is like the
Wow.
largest recorded.
Oh my goodness.
They're
Yeah.
in good whale falls.
Yeah,
To be that big,
yeah.
right?
So ours are not that big, but they are still pretty big. So I was a little nervous going into it. And I was like, what if they pinch me? Like, what do I do?
Such a valid fear for
Right?
crabs.
Crabs are very polarizing, even in our department. Like, there are people that I work with who just hate crabs and they're terrified of them. And for like, real reasons, they can be a little bit of a jerk. But I really enjoyed working with them. They're very silly and they require a lot of babying and special attention, but I enjoyed getting to know their personalities and kind of seeing like how we can make their lives a little bit better. There's a lot that we don't know about crabs from even like a veterinary standpoint. So there's a lot of issues we can have, and it's kind of fun to experiment to see how we can make them better.
Do people who have beef with crabs, do they also have it with other crustaceans, or is it crab specific?
Ooh, I don't know. I feel like it might be crustaceans as a whole, but I feel like crabs, at least for us, because the crustaceans that we usually work with here are spiny lobsters that don't have like the claws. So I don't know if that makes a difference, and if we had our like the other lobsters that have claws, if
The
that
pinchy
would,
lobsters.
yeah.
Pinch you guys.
So I don't know if it's like the claws themselves or just the way that they're kind of just like sea bugs. I don't know.
What do they do when you are diving in their exhibit with them?
They usually run away and they kind of usually hide in a corner. But when we get in there, we like to give their shells little scrubs because it kind of helps prevent any like shell rot, or it kind of extends their life. Also, we're an aquarium, so we do want to present the best kind of animal that we can. In the wild, these crabs are not going to look as pretty as they do here. But so usually after we're done with our like other maintenance, we'll go and we'll kind of sneak up on them and you can kind of just hold their butt a little bit. And then you take a little toothbrush and you give them a nice little scrub. I wouldn't say they necessarily love it, but it is good for them. So
I have a video of Aquarist Sarah scrubbing the crabs, and TikTok had this thing where you just type a word and it makes it into a song. So there's a TikTok that did really well, and it was, "It's time to scrub the crabs." Something like that.
It's time to scrub the crabs. It's time to scrub the crabs. It's time to scrub the crabs. It's time to scrub the crabs.
I forget how it
I
goes
love
now,
that. I would
but-
definitely sing that in my head if I were scrubbing them.
Every time you're scrubbing the crab.
Every time, I mean, you're just sitting there in the water with yourself, so you might as well sing to yourself the scrubbing the crab song.
So crabs like being sung to. Great.
I think so.
Now we know.
I sing and talk to a lot of my animals. I don't know if they appreciate it, but it makes me feel better.
Yeah, I mean, every time I walk into the mountain frog room, I'm like, "Hello, babies,"
Right?
and they don't care about me at all. But I feel better.
It's
about
for
it.
you.
Yeah.
It's singing is for
Truly.
you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so I know we're specifically going to talk about spider crabs today, but can you tell us a little bit about what makes a crab different from other crustaceans? What makes a crab a crab?
Yeah, so crabs are part of the arthropod family.
So they are bugs.
Kinda, yeah, right.
Crabs are bugs.
And they are specifically part of the order Decapoda, which means that they have 10 legs. So true crabs will have 4 walking legs and then 2 legs that have evolved to be kind of like claws. So not all crabs have that, and they tend not to be true crabs. So, for example, a horseshoe crab is not a true crab, and some of the
Fake
king
crab.
crabs are fake crabs as
Really?
well. Yeah, they only have 6 legs, I believe. But yeah, they have an exoskeleton. And so that is a big thing about being a crustacean. But yeah, it's definitely the 10 legs that are going to kind of put them apart.
Fascinating.
King crabs aren't crabs.
Apparently not all of them.
You heard it here first,
Yeah,
folks.
here-
Those aren't crabs.
They're fake
Don't eat
posers.
them. We don't know what they are. Wait, are crabs that are 10-legged crabs, how closely related are they to lobster? Like, are they more closely related to lobsters or like another 10-legged insect or arthropod?
I think lobsters, because they're still part
Okay.
of like the crustaceans. And then
Okay.
it just like kind of like goes down from there.
What about their life cycles? I feel like with crustaceans, they seem very long lived. Is that true? Do they live pretty long?
Yeah, it depends on the species. And it can be anywhere from, a short lifespan of like a year or two, but actually spider crabs, they think that they can live up to 100 years.
100?
Whoa.
How old are ours?
Our longest one that we've had in collection, we've had for I think 6+ years,
Oh, wow. Okay.
but they also came to us this size, so they're already
Full grown.
quite
But
old.
Possibly, yeah, older than
Yes.
than we
Possibly
know.
100.
Possibly, 100.
I don't know about 100, but they say that they can live 50 to 100 years. It's still, since they live so deep, our knowledge of them is
Studies.
still limited, but that's what they think.
Do they grow indefinitely?
Their carapace, which is their main body, has a limit of what they can grow. And so apparently for spider crabs, it's about 12 inches max, but then their legs continue to grow.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's how you're going to get to the 12 feet.
Really?
Ah.
Okay, so pretty much their bodies are all the same size, relative size. It's their legs.
Yes, yes.
Some are taller than the other.
I kind of wish that was me. Like, my torso stayed the
Your
same.
legs
Oh,
keep
my
growing.
legs are so long now.
Right?
It's because I'm 100. So
It's because you're 100.
that is so weird.
Extremely tall.
Wow.
That's amazing. Wow, that's really fascinating. I didn't realize.
Maybe they're trying to reach the light. They're like, I
Maybe.
gotta get.
That's a good point. Maybe. Just try
I
to
think
a little
there's like
closer.
a limit of like how heavy they can
That's
be,
true. They're just like
know?
on stilts at a
Yeah.
certain point. That's fair.
That's fascinating. That's
Wow.
so cool.
This is the best crab knowledge I've ever had.
Truly.
That's really funny. Okay.
What about their reproduction? How do they make more of them?
So usually the females will hold on to the eggs on the underside of their abdomen, and then they'll actually like hatch and become a planktonic larvae, and then they live in the water column for a while before they start growing up into actually looking like crabs.
That seems like the case for like a lot of ocean animals in general, like non-mammal ocean animals seem like they always have like, this is my plankton phase. And like,
Right?
yeah,
Which
same as middle school photos.
seems really hard.
Everyone starts as a plankton for some reason.
Yeah.
When
It seems kind of brutal to just,
float around
yeah,
forever.
exactly. Just hope I make it.
Yeah, and I think females can have like hundreds, if not thousands, of eggs,
Oh, wow.
but only a few are going to survive, like most animals that have a planktonic stage.
Yeah. Then they hold them in that like apron looking thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's very, if you ever look at the underside of a crab, which is the craziest, like, it looks like you're looking under a car.
It's very strange.
There's so many like
right.
parts and bits
Yeah.
and things. But the females have like an apron that kind of opens and they
Exactly,
push
yeah.
water
Way to
over
put
it.
An apron. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it actually is
think
technically
it's-
called
I think
it's
that.
called that.
Yeah. And you can actually, so it's nice because you can actually tell male and female, like crabs and crustaceans in general apart. The females are going to have like a wider abdomen just because then they have more room for the eggs. And then the males are going to have like a slightly more narrow one because they don't have to do that.
Do we have males and females here?
We currently, in our population of spider crabs, only have males. We have in our history had both, but it's kind of noted that if you have multiple or both sexes, that there's going to be a lot more fighting. And so we have found that if we keep to one sex, that it's a little bit easier to control and a little bit less aggression.
That's fair.
But there are places that have both, and you can totally do it. Just a little bit more.
Is there ever any like breeding under human care of the species, or is it pretty difficult?
To my knowledge, I don't know if there has been. I know there has been like eggs seen, but I don't think there's been a successful closing of the
settlement.
like life cycle.
Go from microscopic to 12 feet tall. Like that's
Yeah.
that's a big jump.
It's huge. So in our habitat here, we have only males. Do you see kind of different times of year an increase in more aggressive behavior towards each other, or is it just kind of depending on the day? Because I've seen sometimes them sparring with each other a little bit.
Yeah, I have personally not seen a like specific time of year. There might be, but I feel like right now, because we keep our habitat pretty stable, like at the moment we don't really change our temperature and our light cycle is about the same. So I don't see it as much. It's really, I feel like, individual dependent too. There have been ones that we've had that are a little bit more of a bully than other ones. And so that's
Bully
kind
crab.
of, yeah, so that's kind of dependent right now. The 4 that we have are pretty docile. I feel like I see them most active like in the morning, or where you're going to see it the most is like when you start introducing food in the water. Depending on how you feed them, sometimes we target them, which means we literally take a pole and then we offer a piece to each one, which is great because it means we know that they're each eating. But if you are not fast enough, sometimes the other ones will come running, and then they'll start like locking legs and trying to get to the food.
And they're pretty fast.
And they're
for
pretty fast.
How big they are,
Yeah.
and kind of clumsy too. I've
Yes.
seen them just
So
scuttle.
that happens. Sometimes we'll scatter feed for enrichment purposes and for like foraging purposes. And then you'll see it a little bit less because then they can all kind of spread out. So, but I haven't noticed a specific pattern.
What do we feed them?
So we feed them a variety of things. So crabs in general tend to be scavengers. They live on the bottom and they kind of go for like dead or decaying fish. They'll go for different inverts that are on the bottom. They've been known to like open up like shells and mollusks. And then they actually also eat algae. So we kind of do a mixture of things. We'll offer them different kinds of fish. Even like capelin, herring. They love shrimp right now. Shrimp is their favorite food.
Okay.
But we'll also offer them things that are in hard-shelled items, so like hard-shelled clams or mussels. That's kind of good for them too, because sometimes they'll get like the calcium from the shells. And then we also have gel that is specifically created for crustaceans that'll have some of the like algae nutrients that we would want them to eat.
Vitamins
Yeah,
and all
they don't love it, so you usually have to like sneak it in. So we usually take like a half shell mussel and we like shove gel behind it so
Smart.
that they're like already just
Oops,
shoving
sorry.
food in there.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. They've also been known to eat like nori, which is seaweed. not their favorite, and but it is good for them.
Just picture one holding a piece of nori. It's
Cute.
Yeah.
so cute.
I love that.
It is, yeah. They like usually will like hold it and then they'll let it go and then it just floats away and you're like, well, that was not
Okay.
helpful.
At least we watched it happen, though. When we have like all of our animals here receive some sort of vitamin supplementation, and I guess I never really considered how difficult that might be to give a crab. Whereas the sea lions, they eat fish whole, and so you put a vitamin in a fish, and they'll never know the difference. Are there other animals that you've worked with that are hard to get their vitamins?
Yes. Well, it depends. Like the smaller the animal, if you're trying to do like a pill or something, it's harder because your pieces are smaller. I've worked with a lot of animals that have gotten smart with the vitamins and they will chew around it and then spit the vitamins out.
It's my dog.
Yeah, a lot of our like larger elasmobranchs have figured this
Really?
out. Oh yeah, you just can, if you go to Shark Lagoon, you'll see like vitamins just like scattered on the bottom. Everywhere. They'll be like rays that will like, if you give them like a medicine or something that's not necessarily a vitamin, they'll like chew around everything and you just see it like float up.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's usually easiest if you're just doing, we use what's called VitaFish for a lot of our smaller animals. That's just like a liquid that we can pour over and it can soak in. That's easy because it's already in the food. If you have to put pills and things, if they have to chew a lot, they tend to pop them out.
They know.
They know.
Sure, there's some parents and pet parents too out there that are like, yep, I
Yeah.
totally know
My
that life.
dog.
Yeah, same.
Every time I try to give him his flea medication, he manages to eat all the cheese and then the pill appears on his bed later. And I'm like, how did you
Yeah.
do this?
It's a magic
Just
trick.
cheeked it. I'm a
But
weird
turns
dog.
out our sharks also are tricky about their
They
pills,
are,
as
yes.
are our crabs. So,
Yes.
Funny.
wow, I've never really considered how to give a vitamin to a
Yeah,
crab.
it's hard, especially if things don't eat it. Like our seals and sea lions, they'll just swallow things. If when things pick at things, then they can like
Yeah.
throw it to the ground, and you just see it like littered everywhere, and you're like, cool. Guess I'm gonna clean that up now.
Do crabs have mouths, like proper mouths? Or I see those little, this is not going to translate to an audio format, but those little
like the feathery things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they use those to put it into their actual
Okay.
mouths.
Are they chewing at that point, or are they just kind of like,
I don't know if they're chewing. They usually like, I see them break things off into like tear in smaller pieces, and then they can like put it down easier.
Throw it back with
Yeah.
their little hands.
Yes, but it's usually like you'll see them like picking, and they'll use the ones by their face, the smaller ones, to like hold it too, and then they can like eat from there. Sometimes they use their larger claws, depending on the animal. Sometimes I target closer to their face and then they'll attach to the food, or sometimes I try to get them to just like hold it far away from them.
What do you think is the biggest piece of food one of the spider crabs could eat in one bite?
In one bite?
Is it small? Like
It's
really?
pretty small. Like even when I feed them like small shrimp, they still tear it up. Yeah,
they're like
just
tiny?
They
tiny
want to
bites.
digest well.
they do.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Healthy.
If there's like a clam or a mussel or something that's closed, do you offer them those things, and how do they open them?
Yes. I personally tend to open them slightly to cheat
help
it
them
a
out a
little
little
bit,
bit.
and then but they can, if it is closed, they can like stick their claws in and
Just
kind of
wedge
like wedge it and open it. Ours live a life of luxury and are therefore a little lazy like most animals we have here. And so I kind of cheat it a little bit so that they can just like pop that little spit.
That way you can clean up after quicker,
Exactly.
right? Just,
Yes.
It's for you too.
Yes.
Just like,
We
let's
got
just-
it started for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Here you go.
We especially with crustaceans, we track how much each individual is eating or when they're eating a lot, because them stopping their feeds, if it's not normal, is usually a big indicator that they're going to molt. And when they molt, we want to make sure that they're separated from the other animals. And so we kind of try to make sure to watch and tag that every individual is
You can
eating.
tell it's coming.
Yeah.
Speaking of molt, I was going to ask you about how you partition off the habitat too, because they become soft, right?
Yes. So for our spider crabs in general, we have like this makeshift barrier that we can just put on a corner of the exhibit. And if we think anything's going to happen, any molting, or recently we had a crab that underwent some surgery, so we put him back there.
Crab surgery. I got to hear about that. Okay, please
It's
continue.
actually really cool. And so we can put that in the exhibit, and so they're still like in the same environment and the crabs are around them, but none of the crabs can like climb over it. We make it so that it's like flat and there's no like holes because they can climb things with the little holes in them. And they'll just hang out there until they're nice and hardened. When crabs or crustaceans in general molt, it's a pretty violent process for them. And when they come out, they're very vulnerable and they're very soft. And if you do not get it in time, you will probably not have that individual anymore. It's a pretty violent process between everyone.
And does it kind of spur the other crabs to attack each other, or
I don't know if it spurs, but it's almost always like they can sense a vulnerability.
Really?
Yeah.
your guard's down?
Yeah, exactly.
You're insecure.
Your
They're
shell's
like,
off.
yes.
Literally.
And it's also, so not only when your shell is completely off are you vulnerable, but like while they're undergoing the molting process, it can be as quick as like 25, 30 minutes, but it can also last like overnight. And basically like they shove their body out of a hole in their old shell, and if anything happens, if they get stuck, if they get torn, they're pretty much dead. And so if anyone is around and bothering them, there is a good chance that animal is not going to survive.
Wow.
It's really cool to see. We've been able to get some videos of it, and that's interesting. Sometimes it just depends on the animal, how long it takes, maybe how big they are.
Well,
compared to that.
but I think it's like, it's not even species specific per se. It's even
Animal
just like
specific.
animal specific.
Fascinating.
Do they look different when they've just freshly molted?
They're beautiful. Oh my goodness. Yes. They have like, they're perfect. There's not like, so what's really cool about molting is like, we would love our animals to molt regularly because it means that they're healthy and they're growing, but also it, they can regrow their legs when they're molting. So spider crabs especially, their legs are very long and spindly, and they'll fall off sometimes. In the wild, it'll happen if like a predator is attacking them. Sometimes they get caught on something. But when they do a molt, that leg grows back. And then if they've had any like holes in their carapace, or if there's what's called like black spot disease, it's usually either gone or a lot smaller in that next molt. It's basically like a brand new shiny car. Like they are perfect and beautiful. Yeah.
I have a question, but I'm not 100% sure how to ask it. So if their leg fell off, or like a predator ate their leg, and they were molting again, do they have like, is there something there, or does it regrow with the shell coming in? Like, do they not have like meat there anymore? Like, what happens to regrow their leg?
From my understanding, the like soft part of the crab underneath like starts to grow more even right before it molts. So they're already kind of getting ready. So I think that muscle or that flesh is
sort
like,
of exists.
It exists and it's starting to grow again. And then when they come out, then it's like formed again.
Does it take a couple of molts to fully regrow it, or is it pretty much quickly?
Here's my leg.
I think it depends on the animal, but I think you can get like almost a full regrowth.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
That is cool.
How often are they molting typically?
Depends on the animal. So for our spider crabs, because of how cold they are and how big they are, they tend to molt the least. It can be years. Here at the aquarium, we tend to see like one molt from them while we have them. Other smaller crabs that we have, we can see molts like once a year, twice a year. We have some lobsters on exhibit that are a little, they're pretty young, so they're pretty small and they're still growing, but we would like, one of them molted like every 2 months.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, they're just, So it really varies.
You see a very beautiful lobster.
Right, exactly. But as they get older, they tend to molt less because that's how they're going to regrow, and because it takes so much effort and it's such a stressful
Exhausting,
process.
yeah.
We would love for them to molt a little bit more, but
Is there anything that can spur the molt, like a change in the water temperature or some sort of
hypothetically,
introduced?
things have been tried where you can increase or decrease, but usually increase the water temperature to kind of spur that on. Sometimes if you add like something else to the water to change it up, it can do it. But honestly, it's not a foolproof plan. Usually like there's no hard concrete way to make a crab molt.
Just when they're ready.
It's when they're ready.
On their own time.
Yeah. It would be nice if we could induce it, though, because we have a few that were like, you're getting a little dirty. It's time.
It's time. You need a mannequin.
Yeah.
You need a refresh.
Do our individual crabs have names?
They don't have names at the moment, at least. Naming an animal, at least in our department, is kind of specific to the person who has it. There are some people who are very into naming, some people who are not into naming. I'm kind of an in-between. I name some things and I don't name others. What we do have is we do have them tagged. So originally we had them tagged with zip ties and colors, and so they were kind of known by their color. And then right now we have them actually, we removed the zip ties and we basically added this like dot of, it's not paint, but essentially like looks like paint on the back of them to tell them apart. And so we use like a mixture of like a coral glue and what's called mica powder to kind of ID them.
Jazz them up a little bit.
Jazz them up. Yeah, it's pretty nice. We discovered this a little bit ago, originally from tagging some outplanting for abalone, I believe. But it's nice because zip ties can fall off. And then if you have a bunch of animals in there, and you don't know which one it is, it's a little bit difficult, but it stays on their shell, and so it kind of stays with them.
Nice.
So,
For sure. And that helps you keep track of who's eating,
yes,
who's acting up,
yes,
all of that.
So they don't technically have names, but
they have colors.
They have colors.
Beautiful.
Which one's your favorite?
Oh, my favorite. There's one that's yellow pink, and he likes to sit on the top of the structure in like the sea of white anemones, of white maturity anemones. There you go. And so I kind of like to think he's like sitting in the clouds. So he's a little funny. And then Blue White is our oldest one, who's the one who just underwent surgery, and he's the like least dominant, so he's like
chill.
He's chill. So I like him too.
Well, I'd love to hear about the surgery and kind of what vet care our crabs receive. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah. So like I said, Blue White is our oldest crab that we currently have, and it's because of that he had some pretty severe shell rot, unfortunately. And a lot of invertebrate medicine is still very experimental, or we know nothing about it, and it's kind of just trial and error. And so we worked with our vet team to be like, what should we do about this? He's still eating, still acting normally, but it was looking pretty bad, and we were starting to get some questions from guests and from our staff. And so what we actually came up with is we made a mold of his carapace from this really cool new product whose name I'm forgetting. It's basically like kind of like a little bit soft moldable silicone, for lack of a better word. And we painted it orange, and we basically sanded down the area and cleaned it up. And we glued it on, and it literally looks like part of a regular shell.
How cool.
And while this helps, obviously, cosmetic wise, it's also thought that it's going to help stop the spread of this rot, because we're basically smothering all the bacteria or anything else that's stuck in there. And it should extend his life by quite a bit.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it was never done before, and it's pretty cool. We tried different ways to see how it was going to attach. And we to make the mold, we basically put Play-Doh around the area to stop the little gel that we put in there to harden around it. So I just played with Play-Doh on a crab, and then let that sit, and then we filled that mold up, and then we tried a couple different ways, because we kind of had to make it soft enough that it was going to bend, but not so soft it was going to break. And so far, so good. It looks pretty cool.
Very cool. That's fascinating.
He had a little crab facelift.
He had a little facelift, and he looks 10 years young.
He could be 110, but we don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know.
That's fascinating.
Is there any concern that with his next molt that might impact sort of how he molts, or is it they molt so infrequently and he's so old
It'll just
that
come off with the molt?
Yeah. So in theory, if he molts again, which would be awesome, but it shouldn't impact it, because it's kind of in the top portion, and they usually will come out their butt area, and so in theory it shouldn't impact. And if he does end up molting, that area should be reduced in size, if anything.
Cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go look for facelift crab after this.
Yes.
That's awesome. What about just in general? Do they get annual checkups, or just kind of something you're diving with them, you can notice if things are going on.
Yeah, so when we dive with them, we obviously are taking like closer looks and scrubbing at them, but they do get twice a year, we do what's called a welfare exam on them, and they get an extra special one. So we will lift each crab up individually to the top of the water. It's usually like a 3-person process. We usually have someone in the water diving who goes and scoops up the crab, and we bring them up, and then the people on top, we take pictures, both on the top and the bottom, and of any problems that we see. And then we have a special form that basically is a drawing of a crab on it, and we mark anything that we've noticed, and we give like overall remarks. We look over all of their legs, all of their claws. We look for any new spots on them, if they have anything broken, and then we get some measurements on them, and then we put them back, and then we swap to the next crab. So they get that twice a year. We try not to handle our crabs any extra than we have to. It's a little bit stressful on them, but it's a good way to like get good eyes on them and to watch the progression of any spots that we're noticing or anything concerning.
Can they support their weight of their carapace on their legs out of water?
No, not really. Yeah.
I was going to ask
Yeah,
if it's
they're-
detrimental to them to be out of the water for extended.
So it's not necessarily detrimental. Actually, people have been known to ship these guys dry, meaning that they literally just put like wet paper towels around them when they ship them. It's
Oh.
not the preferred way, but they can survive like that. And so they can be out of water. So for example, when we were doing the surgery, we had them out of water. We had water running over their gills like we would have fish. But if the outside of them, as long as they're sitting and kind of like on a supported surface, they're fine.
Weird.
But yeah, when we take a crab out of water and we put them back, we have to do what's called burping a crab.
Please tell me what I need to know about this.
Basically, air gets trapped inside their carapace, and if you leave it in there, it'll create air bubbles around their gills, which will dry out and then eventually kill them. So what we do is we basically put them in the water and we hold them and we tilt them like face down and we just kind of rock them back and forth, and you'll see like air bubbles just coming out, and you keep doing that until the air bubbles are gone, and then they're good to go and you drop them in.
It's time to burp the crab.
Yeah.
Next video.
I love that.
coming
It's our
soon.
technical term for it.
That's amazing.
But yeah, we do that with pretty much all of our crustaceans if we take them out of the water, just because they have like that air that can get trapped inside that.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, cool. What about, we talked a little bit about it already too, but maybe their personalities and kind of the social dynamic inside of the exhip. You said yellow pink kind of has a more spunky personality.
Little
He
head
has
in the
one-
clouds.
Yeah, head in the clouds. Yeah. Yeah, they each kind of have their own personalities. Some are a little bit more dominant. Some are a little bit more shy and reserved. They are always doing, I think like Erin said earlier, weird things. Every time you walk by the tank, you never know. Sometimes you'll just see them sitting on their butt, chilling, and you're like, okay, I guess it's just like a quiet day. But then other days you find them like all huddled in a circle facing each other with their arms up. And I don't know whether they're summoning something from the netherworld or if they're plotting our revenge. Like, I don't know, but they're doing something. And other
just
times
Asking for more burping.
maybe maybe and then sometimes we have this side wall that they can kind of climb, and so you'll see them sometimes climb up, and they're very silly. They will climb up it, and then there's a pipe that runs right above the top of the window that helps to bring in water, and they'll like attach to it, and you'll just like see them crawling on that one thing, like hanging from the window. But I've seen them like one up there, and then the other three are on the bottom with their arms up, like they're trying to catch him or cheer him on. I'm not sure, but there's like always something going on in there.
So funny.
Really cute.
Yes, I've worked with another spider crab that if she didn't like the food that you gave her, she would like push it away and kind of like shove her head to the side, and like they're very sassy.
A diva spider
They're
crab.
divas, but also not the smartest.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Honestly, respect.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that. What about the other animals? Do we still have those fish with them?
We don't currently have any fish with them. We have in the past. They can live with fish. You have to be a little bit specific on what's in there, because it has to be a balance between it's not small enough for them to get, but also not so big that it's going to bother them. We used to have what's called a cow cod in there. We moved him out just because he was getting a little aggressive with feeding. He was stealing food directly from the spider crabs cans, and they just didn't defend themselves. So we would like to add some more fish in there. That's our goal eventually. But we would love to make it a little bit more Japanese specific since they are. But we do have what's called maturity anemones in there. They're kind of all over the Rockworth or Plumose anemones.
They're beautiful.
Yeah. It's pretty funny because I learned recently there's a group of crabs called decorator crabs, and they usually will put things on their shells to kind of blend in. And I didn't know that spider crabs are actually kind of considered one, which makes sense because every once in a while you'll find these giant anemones stuck to the back of the crabs, and you're like, how are you so slow that an anemone got on you? But I think that's just a thing they do. So every once in a while you just see crabs with like one or two giant white anemones just on their backs, just to make themselves look a little prettier, you know?
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
They are really pretty.
It's probably yellow pink.
It's probably yellow pink.
If I know one thing about yellow pink, it's that he loves anemones.
He does love the anemones.
Oh, that's really cute. I wonder if they put them on or if they like line up and let the anemone like crawl on.
I know. Sometimes, so every once in a while, the anemones will like detach, and that's how they move around. And so you'll find them on the floor of the exhibit. And so I don't know if it just like they happen to be in the right place at the right time, or if they're specifically, I haven't specifically seen them like pick it up and put it on there, but it does happen.
Maybe they prank each other by putting it on someone
Maybe.
else.
I would
like a
love
kick me
for that
sign.
to be true.
But more beautiful.
Just like 3 anemones.
Yes, they're like, I look prettier than you.
It's like angel wings.
Yeah, it would be really nice, especially when you see those anemones. You will understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's
Cool.
a lot of good crap.
That's amazing. Well, we have some questions from social media. The first one is, how do they blink, or if they blink?
So I feel like I don't have a specific answer. I know that their eye stalks, like they move them. So like they're moving all the time. If you get too close, they'll like pull them in, and they're very like expressive. Like they will like, you can see like, oh no, they're mad. But I don't know the actual mechanism of how. I'm going to be honest.
hide
I
their
don't
eyes.
know how humans blink. So
They just do it.
they just do it. Yeah.
So funny.
Do they do it at a frequency if they're not being disturbed? Like, will they pull their eyes in?
Not that I've seen.
So maybe it's not blinking. Maybe it's like protecting.
Yeah.
their
I feel like
eyeballs.
it's more protection.
I think that's a soft part of me. I gotta
Yeah.
Suck
I
that
gotta
right
remove
in.
that.
Yeah, like I feel like it's
hard on
usually
the
like when
outside.
you come towards them with like a little brush, and then they're like, no.
do not scrub my eyes.
To be fair, if you put a toothbrush by my
I
eye,
would
I'll
also
probably
do that.
get
Yeah.
that's fair.
Cool. Do Japanese spider crabs, ours are pretty bright red here, or kind of like a red to orange, ombre to white, yellow kind of. Do they kind of vary in color, or is that typical for the species?
That's pretty typical. They might vary slightly in shape, but I've never seen one that's like a different color. But it might be out there.
Maybe.
An albino Japanese spider
A
crab?
blue one.
A blue
Ooh,
one.
that'd
That
be
would
pretty.
be pretty. Ooh, I see a good question.
Go for it.
Someone wants to know, why do crabs walk sideways?
So I'm pretty sure it's because it's just the easiest way. They have like a lot of legs, and they're usually, especially like spider crabs, pretty long. And so if you go forward, there's like more chance of entanglement and like tripping. And I think it's just the fastest way that they can get away from the animals.
That's fair. Do lobsters walk forward, backward?
They walk forward, but when they're like jetting away with their tail, then they go like backwards.
Oh, okay. That's right. I have seen that. Lobster swimming is super weird.
It's really weird. And so when you're trying to catch them out, like you have to be like prepared for both sides, because they're going to like back away from you.
And the spider crab species is the largest on
Correct.
Earth, right? Is there, what about on the other end of the spectrum? Tiny crabs.
Smallest crab is called a pea crab.
Oh.
And it is apparently about 7 to 8 millimeters in width. So compare that to 12 feet.
Yeah. Oh, big.
It's a little bit different.
That's such a tiny little guy.
I know.
Pea crab.
But there's like thousands of species of crabs.
Right.
There's like over 4,000 species.
Wow.
So they have evolved.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
There used to be these little tiny sand crabs that I would always run into when I was in Hawaii and like on the beach. And some of them were just minuscule. They must have been baby crabs, I'm guessing. But you would just see them everywhere, and they would range from like maybe 3 inches across to like just the tiniest, like a
Aw.
centimeter. And I remember always really liking those crabs. And then there was some scary, really big, like sort of dark brown crabs. And I was like, these are those are going to pinch me.
Crabs
Like,
are polarizing. Even as
Yep.
guests, we were talking about it earlier. It's like you hear people turn the corner and look at the spider crabs, and they're like, ugh. And then you have fear people be like, oh, those look delicious.
those are
Yeah.
beautiful. Or
No, it's never beautiful. It's either scary, delicious, or ill. Those are like the 3 I always hear.
spider
Or
crabs
cool.
are the ones that people eat their legs sometimes.
I think that's usually king
or
crab.
snow.
Yeah, king or
Stop trying
snow.
to eat our crabs. You don't even eat them. They
Yeah.
don't even go here.
I
Those
think
poor crab.
Yeah, the spider crabs, I'm not sure about their market, like things
Mm-hmm.
since they're only found in Japan, and I believe there is like some restrictions on when you can get them. They also live like very deep down, so it's a
Fair.
little bit harder to get.
All that the spider crabs eat is dead whales. So do
Yeah,
you really,
basically.
do you
Yeah.
want to eat that?
Well, I feel like spider crabs too. They it doesn't seem like they have a lot of meat on them. They're pretty like
They're all leg though.
They're
Yeah.
they're not like they're not like
they're not beefy.
beefy.
Legs.
Yeah.
They don't have beef legs.
they don't have beef legs.
They have true crab legs.
That's so
Huh.
funny.
So many questions answered about crabs.
Truly, and some new questions formed
That I didn't even know that I had.
Continue our crustacean conversations. The last question, would you like to take it? It is the most serious question out of all of them.
Someone wants to know, do crabs rave?
I mean, I can't give it a definitive answer on this because I'm telling you, they make weird powwows.
It's true.
And so I don't know what's going on. That could be their form of a rave. It's possible. Like they always got their arms up and then
They're
they're
partying.
they might be partying. I wouldn't doubt it. If someone was going to, it would be our spider crab.
Yeah, they seem like party animals
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Who knows what they do at night?
How many do we have? 4?
We have 4 currently.
4 bachelors raving all
Yeah.
night. I love
love
that for them.
I love it. That's amazing. Well, cool. Thank you, Melissa, for coming on. That was so cool.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was
really fun.
awesome.